Welcome to Bedtime Stories. My name is Stephanie. I work at the Branch bookstore, and today I'm going to read you another Otis book. This one is Otis and the Scarecrow. It was summer when the Scarecrow first came to the farm where the friendly little tractor named Otis lived, back when the corn was tall and ripe. Otis recalled how the crows had scattered at first. They wanted nothing to do with the Scarecrow, which made the farmer very happy. Otis was also happy. A new friend had come to live on the farm. But when Otis went to welcome him, the Scarecrow didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there, a sour look on his face, staring at the cornfield. After a while, Otis left him alone. When the farm animals came by to greet the Scarecrow once again, he didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there, that sour look on his face, staring at the cornfield. The animals didn't know what to think. Who was this new creature? The horse curled his lip at the Scarecrow's musty smell. The ducks pointed at his tattered clothes. The little calf and the puppy were frightened by him. Finally, the bull snarled, huffed, and turned away, and the Scarecrow stood there, alone. Summer passed, and by the crows came back around. They perched, picked, pecked at the Scarecrow. Otis noticed that the Scarecrow didn't shoo them away. He just stood there with that sour look on his face, staring off at the cornfield. Otis puffed a soft sigh and turned to catch up with his friends. Autumn eventually arrived and the days grew shorter and cooler. Harvest time had left the fields bare, except for the plump pumpkins dotting the fields orange. Otis began pulling wagons filled with children, eager to pick out a pumpkin to carve into a jack-o'-lantern. The farm looked different, but Otis loved the changing seasons, and he worked and played as hard as ever. Put, puff, puppity, chuff. It was a splendid time on the farm for being together with family and friends. The cool air drifting through the hills made the animals more rambunctious than ever. A simple game of follow the leader turned into a reckless race over the rolling hills. A game of hide and seek turned into a rowdy rendition of Ring Around the Rosie. The animals playfully circling Otis as he sat counting 1 puff, 2 puff, 3 puffity, 4 chuff. When Otis tuckered out from all the games, he headed up the hill to his apple tree. His frisky friends would join him, and when they were all sitting together, Otis would challenge everyone to a different game. Quiet game. The quiet game is a contest in which everyone must stay quiet and still. No sounds, no laughing, no snorting, quacking, giggling, or puffing. The player who stays quiet the longest wins. Otis knew the animals loved playing any game, even one that challenged them to sit still. To start the game, he would surge his engine to get everyone's attention. Take a deep breath of air and let out a long, soft put, puff, puffity, shh. Otis would sit quietly and look over the farm. There was Mud Pond, full with the autumn rains. There were the plump pumpkins dotting the fields orange. There were the shucks of corn fodder all in a row. And there, still, was the Scarecrow, all alone, staring sternly at the empty cornfield. The puppy was always the first to lose the quiet game. He just couldn't sit still. The bull would twitch his nose, which made the little calf giggle. This made the bull chuckle with a snort. The bull's snort would amuse the ducks, and their bottoms would wiggle as they held back their giggles. The sight of the ducks' wiggling bottoms would amuse the horse so much that he would roll on the ground, neighing with laughter. At this, the ducks would quack out loud, and soon everyone would be laughing and snorting and quacking and giggling. This always left Otis the winner, a big grin on his face as he sat under the apple tree with his friends. One day, a cold rain set in. Otis and the animals ran for cover under the apple tree. They huddled together for warmth as Otis looked over the farm. There was the overflowing mud pond. There were the shiny, wet pumpkins. and the soaked corn shucks all in a row. And there, swaying back and forth in the cold wind and rain, was the Scarecrow. Otis couldn't take his eyes off of him. He thought about how he must feel. And Otis stood up. He marched down the hill, put, puff, puffity, chuff, and crossed into the empty cornfield. Without hesitation, Otis chuffed and puffed straight up to the Scarecrow. Back under the apple tree, the animals watched intently. Otis looked up into the painted eyes of the Scarecrow and smiled. The Scarecrow didn't smile back. He just stared off at the empty cornfield as always. The two of them stood quietly in that great big field as the wind and rain battered them. Then Otis turned his body around, backed right up alongside the Scarecrow, and with a chuff, he sat down next to him. Suddenly, the little calf and the puppy scampered down the hillside, crossed the cornfield, and curled up right next to Otis. Gradually, the cow and the horse ambled down the hillside, and before long, the ducks waddled their way down too. And finally, the big bull sauntered down into the field, joining all the others. Otis surged his engine to get everyone's attention, took in a deep breath of air, and let out a long, soft put, puff, puffity, shh. Otis and the animals sat quietly until the puppy couldn't sit another minute. The bull snorted on the calf's ear, and the ducks wiggled their bottoms, and soon everyone was giggling and quacking and laughing and even puffing. Everyone except the Scarecrow, of course, who never uttered a sound. Yet, as Otis watched, he couldn't be sure, but he thought he might have seen the Scarecrow smile. Either way, Otis thought the Scarecrow didn't look so lonely anymore, surrounded by his friends. The end. See you next time.